Last night I went to bed feeling very motivated, looking forward to going to the gym today, making some videos, doing some work, and today I woke up sick. I find myself feeling drained and lacking creativity. But I've been scrolling through YouTube on my lunch breaks lately and saving videos to watch for later, and haven't gotten around to watching most of them, so I'm gonna react to one of them today, actually. And maybe later I'll feel more creative and create something else, but yeah, this will be a first for me. Never done a reaction before. Let's get into it.
Does anybody else feel like masculinity has slowly been drained from modern video games? I was looking at recent staff photos of Ubisoft and Halo Infinite developers, and it's all starting to make sense.
No, two blues is too many. Oh my gosh. Can I just say, it's kind of sad that, okay, blue hair girls were cool back in the day. Like, I remember being younger and thinking, oh, girl who dyes her hair, that's unique. She's interesting. Ramona Flowers vibes. But now, it's kind of sad that it's been tainted by the idea of people who push weird agendas. Oh, man. Where are my old blue hair girls at? I feel you. I understand if you've been typecast as these people.
Bunch of fat white liberal women. And white liberal women have no interest in masculine, manly, male characters. They wouldn't even know how to write one if they tried. This is why Rockstar, a company founded by men, that at least in 2018 was still mostly run by men, created the magnum opus Red Dead Redemption 2, a game with a manly, well-written main protagonist, Arthur Morgan.
Very, very
if you
nice
want to see the
beards.
size,
have any of you ever seen the interview with actually like having the voice actors on there? They all had very impressive beards and very impressive voices. And I think there was actually a scene where actually people were talking about, if I recall correctly, a lot of women being into the voices and the characters of that game. Kind of like how some guys are down bad for female video game characters, but in this case it was reverse. It was the girls who were down bad for the guys. And I was thinking, you know what, that's nice. Equality for the girls.
Shift away from masculine characters. Honestly, all you need to do is play a few games from 2006, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Games do feel different, I guess.
Consider how many masculine military games came out in the 2000s. Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, Brothers in Arms, Gears of War, Operation Flashpoint.
Okay, listen. One of the first things that happened to me that got me into gaming was actually my grandpa, because he used to play Medal of Honor on the PS1 and PS2, and I would actually play with him. And that game was so tense for both of us, because we would end up just getting shot up by enemies that we couldn't see, because there weren't really any guides, and it didn't always work when we would try to play, because the buttons were worn down on his old controller. So little me being like 5 or 6 years old, I didn't even know what was what, hadn't played a game before really. So trying to figure out what did what and having fun playing with my grandpa on Medal of Honor was really memorable. I'm actually curious if any of you have ever had a game like that introduced you to gaming in general, a fun hobby because of family members. And the other one, Call of Duty World at War. I played Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies and just Call of Duty Zombies with my sisters all the time. And I remember this is when YouTube was finally starting to release like guides. There were people starting to release guides for video games and how to do stuff. We didn't even know the mystery box was a thing until someone looked it up, a little guide, and when we found out, it changed the world for us, because we only ever made it to like round 6 or 7 in the main room of Black Ops Zombies, or in the main room of Nazi Zombies. So just discovering that in the ray gun, that was really special for me. It was good memories, you know?
Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell. All of these games were starring men and had themes like brotherhood, duty, sacrifice, honor. Almost all of these franchises have either been killed off, turned into multiplayer games, or went woke.
Did not know that.
I often
that kind of
wonder
makes me
why
sad.
So few modern games appeal to me. And I think another big reason is this. Everything is just so gay now. Compare the games I just mentioned.
Okay, I'm gonna hear him out. I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
to the modern trash we have to deal with in Overwatch and Apex.
I mean,
almost every character in these new games is either gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, or something else.
Are they?
Like, what happened to a masculine dude with a hot chick on his arm? I love the idea of Xbox Game Pass, but I swear
Okay, here's what I'll say is, like, Duke Nukem was obviously a caricature of the overly hyper-masculine guy. To be fair, though, I think everyone loved it because it was super fun and entertaining to watch and play. And I guess I'm letting him cook for a bit. I kind of understand what he's saying. I think some characters have become more so of a detriment kind of to the vibe of the game because things feel forced in. There's nothing wrong with representation, I guess, in different groups. It's just when it's shoved down your throat and you can tell, oh, they're trying to do this and that. This whole character's personality is that they're part of this political idea or that. And it takes away from actually getting into the game, I guess. Because if you want to make a likable character, don't force ideas. Just make them a likable character and a good, well-written character in general and well-designed. Like, what was the game that came out where it was just really, really poorly made? What was it, Concord? Is that the one that recently happened? I just remember seeing a guy that with rainbow Tupperware armor and not being surprised that it shut down pretty soon after. So, yeah, I guess I understand what he's trying to say. And a lot of games don't feel as enjoyable, but that begs the question, are they less enjoyable because you're no longer a kid when you play them? Because Medal of Honor, sure, that was a great game. Call of Duty, Nazi Zombies, great game. I was a kid when I played those. Is it just nostalgia or have games genuinely gotten worse? Is what I'm wondering about. But I guess we'll see. Yeah.
Every time I open it up and look for new games, there's just so many games that look gay now. I refuse to play another cutesy 2D platformer or a game with a cutesy art style by some indie developer anymore. I'm just done with these
indie games can be good.
If you want my 100% real thoughts on this, I just think the entire video game industry has gone woke and gay, and almost nothing they are making appeals to me in any way anymore. So this is why I mostly play 20-year-old games on my channel, because they were just better.
I mean, that's kind of based.
I was recently reading an insider interview about what went down at Volition Studios with the disastrous Saints Row reboot from an inside source.
I'd heard about that.
This source said that the LGBTQ community within the company was actually pretty small, but they are the loudest and the most annoying, and the company leadership chose to promote these people into key roles.
That's sad. I feel like you shouldn't be afraid of offending someone necessarily, but obviously there's a difference between speaking honestly and actually being hateful towards someone. It's okay to have a different opinion than someone else, especially when it's not necessarily used as some kind of discrimination. Like, genuinely, it's weird. It's weird. I've had friends that are part of that community and they're chill, and I've had people they've known that they've said, oh yeah, this person's crazy. And that's the other thing, is that the ones you see on the media or online or on Twitter, they're usually the most outspoken and crazy. There are normal ones out there. It's just, like, you're not going to hear the normal people because they don't really go and shout at the world that they need to be taken seriously. Otherwise, all that's left is the white noise, the people that are really, really crazy, that are loud and deliberately trying to get offended at everything. It's kind of like, I think it was Super Smash Bros. Melee. There was a song lyric for the Persona characters that were brought to that game, and someone heard a lyric that was offensive rather than actually understanding that it was just a different lyric in Japanese. But that's what they were trained to hear because they're so focused on finding anything to be offended at. And I mean, look, the workers here, he's saying, were scared to offend them, so they put them in positions of power they might not have earned in the creative making of a game, and the game didn't do well. Man, that's really sad. Okay.
And that's how you get the absolute dumpster fire of a game that was Saints Row 2022. I think what you have at a lot of these game studios is about 80% of the staff is probably just hetero dudes trying to do their job.
Not good.
But they're afraid of speaking up or saying what they actually think. And then you have the LGBTQ folks making decisions about what kind of game to make. And everything just ends up being safe and soft and sensitive because, oh, we can't hurt anybody's feelings. So, of course, you get these shitty dumpster fire video games that nobody wants to play. After reading a lot of insider interviews at these developers, this is my sense of what has been happening. I also feel like there's this kind of unholy alliance right now between games journalists, white liberal women at game studios, and the LGBTQ community at game studios.
I think...
And they all seem to be united around one thing. They actually hate gamers.
Yes, okay, that was what I was about to say.
Who are gamers?
Okay. I think I recognize that lady. I might be wrong, in which case I apologize. Isn't that the lady that was basically telling people to come fight her in person because she was upset with how they were responding to her game? Or her influence in the games that she's worked on or been a part of, technically? Because I know a little bit about the whole DEI thing, just slightly. I don't have Twitter. I deleted it once I realized Twitter was a cesspool. But I've been keeping up with a few of those things in regards to kind of censoring games and making sure there's forced inclusion that doesn't feel natural. By the way, inclusion isn't bad. As I said, if there's well-written characters, it doesn't matter who they are, where they're from. If they're well-written, people love them. I mean, look at Arcane, all right? Look at Caitlyn and look at Vi. They were basically female leads, and they also happened to be gay or bisexual. And no one cared because it wasn't a bad thing because they were just well-written, awesome characters. So that's like the difference between well-written and forced to be a one-trick pony is that your whole personality is you're part of this community. And also not being able to state your own opinion or do anything creative because you're worried about offending someone. Oh, that's sad.
Overwhelmingly, well, heterosexual dudes like us, of course. This recent Reddit thread was written by an actual game developer and made me realize this. It reads, headline,
Am I allowed to say this? I kinda hate gamers. I'm a professional game designer, and I'm worried that I'm starting to hate gamers. Watching the gaming events on YouTube last month with the chat on was extremely disheartening experience. Every time a character that wasn't a cis-het white man appeared on screen, the chats would fill with messages calling the game woke or complaining about DEI. Every game that wasn't a shooter or a hyper-casual competitive online game garnered zzz and boring comments. I've seen people implying that the MC in Fable trailers is ugly because it's a self-insert of some random level designer working at Playground whom they deemed not fuckable enough. I don't know, it's just the internet magnifying negative voices, I guess, doing what it does best. But it's making me real tired of gamers.
So at this point, it seems that games journalists...
Okay, here's what I'll say. It's true that a lot of people are almost... Okay, we talked about people being trained to listen to things that might offend them. I think as a result, opposite and equal reaction, there are now people that are trained, even when it might not necessarily be there, to see something that's being forced at them, like certain representation or certain politics. And that might not always be the case, but because it's happened so much, now they're seeing a character that might, for example, be gay or be of a race that isn't white. And then they're going, oh, they're doing another stereotype. It's not going to be good. They're forcing it. Oh, it's another sissy game, whatever. And sometimes that might be the case that they're forcing another thing that just ruins the writing and ruins the vibe of the game. But it also might not be. But because you've done it so much to people who play games, and I've experienced this myself, I could kind of see a game, and most of the time I'm spot on accurate at being like, yeah, I know what they're trying to do here. And I think most of you have experienced that too. But it's just sad because there might be some that aren't, but because we've been so used to having that force on us, it's almost like training us to be a certain way. It's sad. It sucks. It really sucks.
And all of the liberal LGBT mafia that work at game studios actually hate their audience.
Not good. Not good.
And this is a comment I keep reading from you guys again and again. I swear they literally hate us. They seem to be dead set on giving their audience exactly what we don't want. How long is your business going to be open if you're dead set on not giving the customer what they want? This is why when skanks like Alyssa Mercante are crying about Kotaku shutting down and losing their jobs, and
Kotaku
game
shut
studios
down?
are going under because they were associated with Sweet Baby Inc., I just laugh.
That's their name.
Let them burn. Let all these companies burn who don't know how to give the audience. The wonderful irony in all this is that it's the very games that the woke cancel mob has tried to cancel that seem to do the best.
That's true.
Remember Hogwarts Legacy? Yeah, men who dress in women's clothes tried to get it canceled. Instead, the game sold 25 million copies. Oops. Remember Elden Ring? Remember how the woke mob tried to accuse FromSoft games of having, quote, problematic depictions of women? Oops.
I didn't even know about
25
that.
million copies. At this point,
Yeah.
making an offensive game seems to guarantee that game's
No
success.
Russian.
We could talk about Stellar Blade, pissing off all
my
of
God.
the liberal progressives, and yet everybody...
Oh my gosh. I should probably play, actually, just to get this off screen. Play, where's the play
went out
button?
and bought it. Okay, so in the rest of this video,
Okay,
I want
it's
to give you
good.
4 examples of a game or game series going from masculine to feminine or gay, and it basically either killed or ruined the franchise. Number 1, Ubisoft and Red Storm Entertainment. So Red Storm Entertainment was a video game company founded by the legendary Tom Clancy to make Tom Clancy video games. He sold the company to Ubisoft in the year 2000, and Ubisoft in the 2000s actually had some balls and made some of the manliest games you've ever seen. There were the Splinter Cell games, the Ghost Recon games, the Rainbow Six
Far
games,
Cry.
and the Far Cry
Oh my
games.
god.
All of these games pretty
Far
much
Cry was
feature
so good.
exclusively men, and these IPs in the 2000s had so much testosterone, just a single glance from a woman in their direction would get her pregnant. I mean, motherfucking Sam Fisher, come on. The dude is...
I like how he says that. Meanwhile, back then when I would play Far Cry, I was very much considered nerdy. And I even remember talking about it with a friend at like a crosswalk, and I was waiting for the walking sign to come on to cross the street, and there were girls next to us, and I was talking about it, and they like just started laughing when I was talking about video games like Far Cry. I mean, they might have manly vibes to them for us, but yeah, back then there are more people now that like games, but back then it wasn't looked fondly on if you were a guy that played games. Yeah. But talking about what he was saying with Elden Ring and the other game about how people were upset with not enough representation, I didn't even know that happened with Elden Ring. As far as I knew, I only remember people complaining Elden Ring was too hard. I don't remember people complaining that it didn't have enough representation, or representation that was considered offensive to women. So I'm surprised by that, because there's 2 main characters, the maidens actually, that made a difference. So I feel like that's empowering to women. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised by that. I do remember Hogwarts Legacy and going after J.K. Rowling, and it was really sad because a lot of people went after streamers, and especially VTubers like Silvervale and Pikami, which I think hurt a lot of people in the community, and it especially hurt me because I loved watching Pikami and seeing all the hate that people were throwing at her. And people just throw around any word nowadays online, and it kind of loses its meaning. People saying like, oh, you're a Nazi if you play this game. You're just trying to play a video game. And do you know what actual Nazis are like? They're not like... Oh my god. People are throwing around words, and then they lose their power because they're using them incorrectly on people that don't even apply to that. They were just people who wanted to play a game. It's just frustrating to see people that get brain rot on Twitter. Brain rot. I've experienced that recently with a video I made. But brain rot on Twitter, and that's just their whole life. Go touch grass, people. This is coming from something that's made of grass and moss. Go touch grass.
is the ultimate Giga Chad. Scott Mitchell in Ghost Recon. Now, you pick your own character in Far Cry 2, but it's definitely a manly game that will put hair on your chest. So what is Red Storm Entertainment up to today? Well, I recently saw that Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland is being led by a man who dresses in women's clothes in his free time.
Berserk tattoo
Now look,
based.
I don't give a shit
but-
if you want to
Oh my
identify
God.
as a dragon and go around laying magic eggs, but can we agree that the least masculine thing on earth you can do is dress in women's clothes? Tom Clancy would be rolling over in his grave right now if he knew the absolute
Yeah,
disaster
I get what he's
that
saying.
Red
I
Storm
get it.
Entertainment had become. Number 2, Wolfenstein. So I was recently playing Wolfenstein The New Order for the first time, which came out in 2014. And I have to say, of all the games I was sure were going to avoid woke Western progressivism, this game was pretty high up there.
Really?
The first 3 entries of the reboot were all fantastic. They had the badass BJ Blazkowicz, an absolute unit, as the main character.
That's his
ripping
name?
apart entire armies of Nazis with the sexy and smart Anya as his arm candy and wife.
Freckles
Machine
on video
Games'
game
first
characters.
3 Wolfenstein
Best
entries,
option.
which came out in 2014, 2015, and 2017, are all great. They have normal men and women doing normal shit in them. Awesome. But of course, the woke mob had to get involved somehow. So you have a beloved series with a beloved, tough, male, manly main character. Do you suppose it's a good idea to
yo.
kill off that guy and replace him with cringy girl boss characters?
Oh.
Wolfenstein Youngblood came out in 2019, and it's an absolute tone-deaf disaster. So many modern video games, I find myself asking, who wanted this? Who asked for this? I often ask the same thing of the new Star Wars shows by
That was
Kathleen
bad.
Kennedy
That was
as
really
well.
bad.
The Wolfenstein reboot had the perfect synergy of story and gameplay. You are BJ Blazkowicz, unleashing his rage on the Nazis for killing everyone he loved. You see this come across in his brutal assassinations, like sticking a rusty pipe through the eye socket of an SS Waffen commander.
Damn.
But the setup to Wolfenstein Youngblood is incredibly cringe. In it, you play as BJ's daughters, and they're honestly nothing like him. The first time you kill somebody, they don't really want to do it. And when they finally kill the guy, they have to have lattes and talk about it.
Oh my god. Okay. So, this goes back to what I was saying. I can already kind of tell the vibe that this game was going to be, just based off the way that it looks, design-wise. That's sad. And also the fact that I feel like it's kind of macabre in a way to put in certain weird ideas in a game that's literally about fighting Nazis, because that's already pretty hardcore going for what's actually good and equality. So, to see that, and then they're dancing in a elevator and then talking about them getting lattes. Okay, listen, it's not to say that games didn't have some crazy ridiculousness that made them a little bit funny and humorous at times. It's just, once again, I can already tell by looking at it what they were trying to do, and it just feels out of place. It feels really out of place, and they're ruining games.
About it afterwards. Youngblood is a perfect example of how a cutscene can go so wrong in a game. BJ's setup is perfect and explains to you why you're doing the actions you're doing. BJ's daughters, however, are acting like they're in an episode of Big Bang Theory the whole time. They just happen to be killing Nazis, and haha, isn't this so funny? It's tonally all over the place and just so full of cringy and awful cinematics, which is ironic because the cinematics in the first three games were like so good and short, and they got to the point and they were really emotional and impactful. Example number 3, Gears of War. For a full explanation of how the woke mob girl-bossed Gears of War, see my video on that game, but I'll keep this short. The first 3 Gears games are an incredible trilogy focusing on the bonds and brotherhood between men.
Yes.
They're incredibly masculine
I know people
games,
that cried
focusing on
when
duty
certain
and
characters
sacrifice
died.
and military orders. And I know some of you hate this, but for 10,000 years, it's only been men fighting wars. Sorry. The first 3 games focus on Marcus, Dom, Cole, and Baird and tell a masculine story of brotherhood. Well, the progressive woke mob somehow got to Gears of War, and Gears 4 and 5 are about sisterhood, motherhood, being a traitor, and what it feels like to be a woman. They introduced the character of Kate Diaz, who I don't think anybody gives a single fuck about. What they should have done is put Kate in a spin-off game, not a mainline Gears entry. But here's the problem, of course, nobody would have bought it. So unfortunately, Gears 4 and 5 are basically girl boss, feminist Gears of War, and any masculine story about men is put on the back burner. Of course, the games include Baird and Marcus in them, but they're really on the back burner, and Gears is now about Kate Diaz, who I've never talked to a Gears fan even cares about. Moving on, example number 4, the Saints Row reboot.
I don't know enough about that Gears of War game that came out with the female characters, and I don't necessarily think there's anything bad with female characters being put in the front running. It's just when it's forced. Like the idea of motherhood and all that, sisterhood and all that, that's no different from brotherhood. It really depends on how they've been executing it. And talking about how he was saying the cinematics have gotten worse in some games, that makes me wonder if it's because people are putting people in positions of power and overviewing and being in charge of certain aspects of game creation that aren't qualified to be there, but they feel like they need representation, so they have them hired there. And as a result, it's causing certain cinematics and other qualities of the game to go down and not be as enjoyable and obviously noticeable as worse, is what I'm wondering about.
Boot. Saints Row spent 10 years building up characters and building up a very distinctive and edgy and male sense of humor. It's the kind of stuff you and the guys would laugh at. Some of the recurring characters in Saints Row are Johnny Gat, Julius, Aisha, Shondi, and several others. In these games, the men are men and the women are women. Johnny is edgy and hilarious and always has
This
a
game
hot
is
chick on
wonderfully
his arm.
ridiculous.
The humor is crude and hilarious, and the Saints are always getting into trouble. So what went wrong with the reboot? Well, the woke 2022 reboot thought it was a good idea to kill off every single character from the old Saints Row games, and I guess they thought we would be cool with that. But don't worry, all of the beloved characters you've come to know and love have been replaced with tokenistic characters from a literal seminar on diversity. You've got the gay Asian man,
These guys
the girl
just look
boss
like
lesbian,
millennials.
another girl boss lesbian, and the gay black guy. The LGBTQ.
Okay. They're not even trying to hide it. That's just too obvious. Oh my god. First off, that's really sad if they actually killed off every character that people have come to know and love. These guys all just look like millennials and zoomers. They look like early zoomers, late stage millennials. This does not... The vibes of this do not feel right. I would not have known this is a Saints Row game just looking at it and hearing that description. Oh my god.
Mafia didn't just kill Saints Row, they crucified it on a rainbow flag. And this is what you get, guys. This is what you fuckers get for supporting these people. They turn out shitty games that aren't funny, that aren't cool, that aren't masculine. So stop hiring these people. Game developers need to stop putting gay stuff in games, and they need to fire every liberal white woman if they want us to ever buy a game again. Because I'm serious, we are done with this shit. We're not buying these games. Like, Phil Spencer is out here complaining about how people aren't spending as much money on games anymore. I guarantee if you give us hetero dudes hot chicks in games again in manly men, you will see sales go through the roof.
Or
bring
tough
back
badass
the glory
women.
days of
Think
video games.
Laura Croft.
I have this theory that in a few years we're going to see a turn back to the golden era of video games.
I hope
and
so.
people are going to start buying games again. I recently saw this crazy chart from 2023 that basically showed that people are only playing old games these days. Nobody wants to play anything that's new out right now because it's all woke and it all sucks so bad. So anyway, guys, let's all hope there's a return of masculine characters in games again at some point that we can relate to. All right, I'm out.
I get it. Honestly, it's weird looking at that game again. That Saints Row game, they all kind of look the same. Not Saints Row, but a lot of games that have those politics. Do you ever notice that? They look like Play-Doh. And I'm not someone who's like a graphics fiend that has to have the highest quality graphics. They just have a certain aesthetic to them that feels lazy. Like, you could put characters from different games that all have that same agenda, interchange them, and put them in the different games, and you wouldn't notice that they were out of place, because they all have that same vibe that just feels weird. Really, really weird. And I know he's like against indie games, but I feel like indie games are more so what I've been enjoying lately, because they feel more genuine rather than AAA nonsense and garbage and repeats. Even taking out the part of forced politics and ideologies, a lot of games kind of just have a formula that's overused and they don't get creative at all. It's like, okay, here's another shooter, and here's another shooter with microtransactions and reskins of guns that cost a lot and that people are going to actually spend real life money on. And it's just sad. I think he brings up a good point, though, that they do have a different vibe, and they've gotten rid of characters that feel genuine and sincere. It's just really sad. Wow, this made me sad, but also made me nostalgic thinking about the games that I used to play with my sisters and my grandpa. But yeah, this was interesting to watch. It was enlightening. So if you want to see what I'm like when I'm actually creating random videos, go check them out. Thank you. I'm gonna go drink some hot water and some tea and anything to get better, because I don't feel great. Watching this made me feel a little bit better, but I don't feel great. Bye.